Well, thank you very much. I have a question for all of you to start out with. Raise your hand if you're alive. Pretty much everyone, except for the people on their phones, raise their hands. If you're alive, what's your biggest fear? Death, right? Because that's kind of like, it's either you're alive or you're dead. So that's kind of what you fear. If you think about it, it's really only in the past 100 years where us common folk out there would have, we could have long periods of time without life-threatening events. I mean, think about it. If you were obviously in the plains of Africa, you had to worry about lions, and in India, tigers, and you had to hear cougars and grizzly bears. As you advanced, societies were quite violent, and people, constantly were being put in the situation of the fear of death. And what was really interesting is if you really look at, how the human body has evolved over the years, is the human body is really thought about, how does it react to fear? How does it do things like that? And we'll talk about this in a little bit. Every neuron in your body reacts to that. Well, this is a picture of me when I was 15, 16 years old at Pinnacles National Park. I learned very early on, whenever I scared myself, I had a real rush. It was really cool. It was something, that climb is a climb. The first time I did it, it was my first 2-pitch climb. I was actually out on a ledge looking down 150 feet. I completed the climb, and I was just really, really excited about it. So what did I do? I practiced. I got better and better and better. I did a lot of bouldering, a lot of 1-pitch climbs, and I just felt this amazing thing. When I put my climbing shoes on and I was about ready to go do a route, I felt really good. So after I practiced quite a bit and got pretty excited about this, I said, okay, it's time to go to the place, Yosemite, and go do some spectacular climbs. We did a couple of small climbs on El Capitan, on El Half Dome, and others. But then my partner and I, we were at the grand old age of 16 and a half, 17. If my parents knew what we were doing, I don't think they would have let us go. But anyway, so we were going to go do the Sentinel. It's a 2-day climb, so you actually spend the night on the rock. And a big part of the Sentinel is you'll see where it says exposed. You actually walk that, almost crawl it. It's called a Class 5 ascent. You don't use ropes or protection, but it's pretty technical. So anyway, right about where that arrow is, it's about a 1,500-foot drop. And so I was out there climbing. I slipped, and I started to fall back. I grabbed onto a root that was exposed, and I let my backpack go, and my backpack fell 1,500 feet to its mortal end. Therefore, I could not complete the climb. Miracle of miracles, I actually found the backpack. We climbed down, and we actually found the backpack. It was, exploded and all kinds of fun things. But it was after that I realized, I like the fear part. I like that expression. I like that feeling. The part about feeling about climbing, didn't like so much, because it was kind of binary. Either you survived or you died. You didn't get hurt. Okay? So not much after that, I found something that was pretty unique for me. I found something that scared me, created a lot of fear, but it happened to be in the business world. I became a computer programmer. But when you're programming and you're building these things, it's exhilarating. You don't know if it's going to work. You solve problems. You try to figure things out. And it's just a great experience. And I first started with the Apple II, and then not long after, at the age of 23, I was the international product manager for the Apple IIc. And I sat down with my bosses at the time, and I said, guys, I think we can introduce this computer in 4 countries simultaneously. Today, that seems like no big feat, but back then, it had never been done before. Actually, I can't find the picture, but before we did the introduction, I stayed up 60 straight hours to actually get it all done. I actually have a picture of me asleep at the computer that I gotta find. I can't find it anywhere. But, it was a great accomplishment. And I got that, hey, I wasn't tying my rock climbing boots on. I was, putting on my tennis shoes and jeans and t-shirt, but I had that same sort of feeling. Then not long after that, in the late 80s, I started my first company, CKS Group. and started with 2 other folks. And we were one of the first digital marketing communications agencies. Actually, our big competitor was Nancy Kramer here at Resource Emirati. And so we competed for 12, 13 years in the marketplace. Anyway, I was able to take this company public, and I was 35 years old, sitting in the trading floor at Goldman Sachs, watching our company go public, and it was exhilarating. The early times is all, can you make payroll? It's rough. You got 5 employees, 10 employees, and you have hundreds. You go public, and things are all great. And you have the fear of you're going to make the quarter, and it was just a really fun, interesting time. I was doing things I'd never done before, and each time it was something new. In the late 90s, I actually sold the company. And I joined Sequoia Capital, the venerable Silicon Valley venture capital firm, where they're the initial investors in Apple and Oracle and a couple other names you've probably heard of, like Google, Yahoo, PayPal, YouTube. So they've done pretty well. But for some reason, when I started at Sequoia, I didn't have that sense of fear. It was just kind of, hey, I made it, I'm here, I'm doing my thing. But I wasn't getting that. So I did what every 40-year-old venture capitalist does. I took up motocross. Why? Because when I put on my boots, I wanted that feeling. And because when you fall, it hurts. The good news is it hurts, but you're most likely not going to die. Like falling and rock climbing. So I actually got quite good at it. I practiced quite a bit. This is actually me at a race in Glen Helen. That's me, 431 there. If you want a great experience and you want to have a lot of fear, line up 40 motorcycles to go into one corner at the same time. It's kind of a fun experience, okay? And I got good at jumping my motorcycle. This is actually a picture that my wife took of me right before I went motorcycling for the first time in Ohio. I came here in January of 2011. You can motocross in California 24/7, 12 months out of the year. You can't do that in Ohio. So this is in April, and the track had just opened, and I'm all excited. So I get on my bike, and I have a whole bunch of fun. This is actually the finish line jump, and the second guy's me. So you're just having fun. You're doing all these things, and actually, for that 10-year period, so I'm 51 here, and for that 10-year period, I had some crashes, I had some bruises and things like that. I broke a finger, I think, and actually broke a couple ribs too, but not some life-threatening thing. Well, for some reason, I had to go to Ohio to do this to myself. So what's called cased a triple jump. I hit right in the face of the jump, and the crossbars of my motorcycle hit me right in my goggles. It basically broke my face into a whole bunch of pieces. And I had an amazing surgeon at OSU, Dr. Pearson, and after 10 hours of surgery and a little bit of extra devices, I was able to come out of it. Now, there was a problem. You see this face? This is kind of a newish face here. I told him to make me look like Brad Pitt. It just didn't work. He says, Mark, I just don't have the ingredients to do it. I'm sorry. So I had to move on. So after this whole experience, I said to myself, with age comes a cage. So what I needed to do was actually put chromoly steel around me so that if I crashed, I wouldn't have this problem. Well, one thing I didn't realize, you have a lot more mass in a car. And when you crash, you really crash. This is my wreck of the year in 2014. It's going and going and going and going. Luckily, I was knocked out at the first hit, so I don't remember anything. So here's another view of it, if you'd like to see the bottom of my truck coming up here. There's the bottom of my truck. So this was literally 2 years ago, this past September. Actually, my second son was just born, Magnus. My wife was here in Ohio watching this on television, so she deserves a round of applause for surviving that. But how many here have you seen yourself dead? Not too many hands. Well, I've seen myself dead. Look at me, I'm totally knocked out. I'm gone. The lights are on, but nobody's home. And so after this, they actually took the jaws of life and life flighted me out of there. And I kind of came to twice, but the first time I came to was in the helicopter when they're life flighting me out. And I'm sitting there, I'm lying down, I'm going, Kvamme, what are you doing? You kind of got everything together. You got a beautiful wife, you got beautiful kids, you got a good job, you're living in the greatest state in the Union, Ohio. What's going on here? And so I said, I got to think about why do I do this? What's that feeling I get? So I did a little bit of research. And when you are fearful, every neuron in your body explodes. Your body becomes super intense, super ready for anything. And in fact, one of my favorite ones here is every time before a race, you visit the restroom many times. So you'll see here, bladder and colon prepare to void their contents in preparation for violent action and possible injury. That happens, okay? Your lungs, your heart rate. I don't know if many of you have seen like a NASCAR race or a race, and they'll show the drivers inside their cars yawning. And everyone goes, man, he didn't get enough sleep last night. It has nothing to do with that. His body is so attentive. He's utilizing so much oxygen. His brain is being oxygen starved, so he yawns to get more oxygen in your body. In fact, before a race, I actually hyperventilate because your body is just going. And it all comes from this wonderful piece of your brain called the amygdala. Okay? And the amygdala is what fires all this stuff off. And they've done a lot of research around the fear part of the amygdala. They call it the hijacking of the brain, the amygdala hijack. And so what's interesting about the amygdala, we all know the survival part of it. It's that flight and fight and freeze and all these wonderful things that, your brain is like solely focused like, hey, I'm about ready to die, I got to do something. But the amygdala also does a lot more for you. There's a lot of this emotion. A lot of the other aspects of what you do is your imagination, your long-term planning, your abstracting, your reasoning. It is actually a big part of your whole system inside of your brain. So it not only fires off everything in your body, it's firing everything off in your brain. So after this crazy crash I had in the dirt truck, I started thinking about this. So I said, okay, I want to keep doing this. Okay, I don't want to go rock climbing. I don't want to go motocross. The off-road dirt truck's a little bit hurts too. So I thought about golf. And so a good buddy of mine, Jason Day, who's the #1 golfer in the world, lives here in Columbus, he said, Mark, nerves are a good thing. They will heighten all your senses and focus. Just focus on what makes you good, and that's it. The problem is I'm not good at golf. And I don't get that same sense. For some reason, I don't have big galleries watching me. It's probably a safety concern. But when he tells me, when you're on the Masters on the 16th hole on Sunday, and you can win this thing with a 14-foot putt. He says every neuron in his body is going. Well, that's not for me. I'm just not a golfer. So I've tried a new sport. It's race car driving, because I thought, hey, I'm not on the dirt. I'm not flying in the air. I am on the asphalt. So this last year, I took up prototype challenge race car driving in the IMSA series. And actually, so far, it's gone really well. I had a couple little incidents, but nothing life-threatening. In fact, I actually got on the podium of one of the big races. This is the Watkins Glen race. And what's really fun for you older folks in the audience, I'm 55. I'm double the age of everyone else on the platform. So it's... if you want to beat a 20-something, get 500 horsepower and go drive a car. So, in wrap-up, fear. I think there's two responses to fear. First one is the more common one. Forget everything and run like hell. Okay? Just, okay? I think the second one is face everything and rise. Face your fear. Because what I fundamentally believe is I think it makes you younger. I think if you face that fear and do things in a different way, you can choose to live in a much richer way. So I have a challenge for you. Find out what scares you and conquer it. I met a gentleman here who saw our first talk this morning. He says, I hate roller coasters. I'm going to go on a roller coaster this year because that's a way for me to face my fear. Find something that scares the living daylights out of you. It might be public speaking. It might be, whatever it happens to be. Go do it. Because after you do it, you will never feel better. Thank you very much. Thank you.